Hey guys, so if you clicked on this video, you already know what I'm about to talk about. Thor Love and Thunder, the fourth and hopefully final Thor movie. I watched this movie last night for free, and thank God it was free, because quite honestly, it stinks. In my opinion, worst Thor movie ever. Now, remember guys, these are just my opinions and thoughts. That's all I do when reviewing movies on this channel. I'm just giving my thoughts on them, from my perspective. You don't have to agree with me or even like me, but please be respectful, because I know how MCU fans be when someone dislikes something.
Shoot him! Cut out his tongue!
Shoot him and cut out his tongue, then shoot his tongue.
Let me be honest. When it comes to Thor, he's one of the best heroes in the MCU. One of the OG 6 Avengers. And I actually liked all his solo movies, even Thor the Dark World. But see, Ragnarok is my favorite. I think a lot of people will agree with me when I say Thor Ragnarok totally revamped the character. A shot of adrenaline into the Thor franchise. And with how successful Thor Ragnarok was, it wasn't surprising to me that Marvel brought Taika Waititi back for a fourth installment. Seemed like it was going to be a victory lap to me, especially after I saw the trailer. I was so hyped for this movie, honestly. It looked fantastic, and having Gorr the God Butcher as the main antagonist I thought was amazing, unexpected, and smart. And visually, this movie was amazing. I could tell they really went all out with this one, trying to make it something special. The action scenes, fight scenes, those were also amazing. Matter of fact, as far as Thor movies go, Love and Thunder had the best fight scenes out of all Thor movies. They were all consistently good, action-packed, choreographed well, and eye-catching because of how much this movie just popped. And I liked how much this movie referenced different things in Marvel Comics. I like how the MCU is getting closer and closer with its comic book roots. I think that's awesome and important. Even Thor's look in the first act was just like Eric Masterson's Thunderstrike from the Thor comics from the 80s. I loved it, having characters like Eternity. Eternity is one of the best cosmic beings in Marvel Comics, and to see it on screen, again, amazing, unexpected, couldn't believe it. I give them full props for that. And having other celestial beings, just cool. But when it came to the overall movie, it's bad. Number one, very fast-paced. We don't stay on one thing long enough before we jump to something else. This movie felt incredibly rushed, and I really, honestly don't see why. I mean, if they had gone longer, maybe hitting the 2 hour 30 minute mark, I think that would have given things more time to develop. I think things could have been planned out better, thought out more good, characters could have had more of an arc than they did. I think it would have been better if it was longer. But see, what I hated most is how incredibly silly it was. This movie is, I mean, there are some scenes in this that are just flat out ridiculous. Like Korg's head and Valkyrie's hair. Just ridiculous. Watching this movie, there were some scenes in it where it's like, I'm literally feeling like I'm just wasting. Like, why am I here? Why am I still in this seat? I'm tempted to walk out. And maybe it's just me. I have been told by a lot of people that I don't have much of a sense of humor. So it could just be me. Maybe I just didn't get the jokes. But for me, way too silly for me. I mean, it was comedic moment after moment after moment after moment. Nothing is taken seriously. It's like an SNL Marvel parody of Thor. In Thor Ragnarok, there were a lot of comedic scenes, but you still had a lot of emotional, meaningful moments that added to the story. With Love and Thunder, however, it was so silly to the point where when there was serious moments, they can't even be taken seriously because there was joking in the mix of it. This whole movie is a joke. Thor has become a joke. One of the scenes I'm talking about is Lady Sif looked like she was about to die. Lady Sif, a character who's been around since the very first film all the way back in 2011. You'd think if she died, it would hit hard, especially for Thor. This is Thor's last OG friend from Asgard. Number one, she didn't die. I think she should have died. I think that it would have been a good move if they did kill her off, just because of the, you know, the whole, what should have been a dark theme of this whole movie, that Thor has lost everything. He's losing everyone. But she didn't die. And her moment of suffering, looking like she was about to die, even that, there was comedic moments mixed in with that. It's like, this is silly. I mean, honestly, I could literally go on and on and on about just how much dumb stuff. It wasn't even funny to me. It was just dumb stuff in this movie. Stormbreaker is getting jealous of Mjolnir. The axe is getting jealous of the hammer. So apparently Stormbreaker has a mind of its own now and is getting mad that Thor misses his hammer. It's like, this whole thing is just silly. I don't remember the axe having a mind of its own in any other movie or even in the comics. Never knew Stormbreaker to be jealous of another object. Just silly stuff. We spend time at Omnipotent City, the nexus of the gods, a home to ancient beings, a place of divine fellowship and governance. Sounds truly awesome on paper. And actually on screen, it was beautiful. But in the movie, this place sort of just acted as kind of a playground for all these ancient beings across the universe, where they all cower and hide from Gorr the God Butcher and plan dinner parties. Then you have Zeus. Zeus, the most powerful god of the gods. In this movie, he was very dainty, very silly looking and silly acting, and very much of a cartoon villain. He seemed very, very cartoonish, mischievous. I mean, it's how this is almost as if Disney made this movie. To add insult to injury, not only was he dainty, cartoonish, and just foolish, he was taken out way too easily. Zeus got one-shotted by Thor. Now look, I hate comparing Marvel to DC. Honestly, I really do. Because they're two different universes that shouldn't be compared at all, if you ask me. But when I look at DC Zeus, that was a real god. No way this version and other gods would be backing down from someone like Gorr the God Butcher. I thought that Thor and the other gods were gonna go to war with Gorr and his forces of darkness. I thought there was gonna be this epic, huge war battle, kind of like Avengers Endgame level, an Avengers level, epic, fantastic finale, but we didn't get that. I thought that would have been something cool, and I thought that would be the whole point of going to Omnipotent City. What's the point of going there? It was really pointless going there, honestly. They didn't do anything. They went there and then they left. Yeah, they got the Thunderbolt, but I feel like that was a waste, honestly. We didn't get a war between the gods and Gorr and his forces of darkness. You know what we got instead? We got like 20 seconds of Zeus doing magic tricks with his Thunderbolt, throwing it in the air in Thor's face. Because God forbid we get some actual, real, emotional character development with Zeus, right? Instead of having Zeus, you know, counsel Thor, kind of like a father, like how Odin was over his tremendous loss. Instead of Zeus rallying all the gods together to take on this massive threat, instead of Omnipotent City getting destroyed by Gorr, showing us really how powerful this villain is. Instead of all that, again, we got Zeus doing magic tricks for 20-something seconds in Thor's face. Watching this, I was hungry for some serious moments. When I actually did find myself enjoying the film, it was only when Christian Bale was on screen. Christian Bale knocked it out of the park with his performance as the God Butcher. Honestly, I feel like he carried this movie. Every scene he was in was fantastic. He made Thor look good. Them fighting in the Shadow Realm, easily my favorite part in the whole movie. He was menacing, threatening, scary, easily the best villain out of all 4 movies. I used to think Bale's performance as Batman was pure gold. Now I'm thinking it's definitely the God Butcher. What makes Gorr cool is how tragic and deeply disturbed he is. He's a monster. He's a scary, sadistic killer. But his motives, while sinister, are completely understandable. At the end of the day, this is a character who misses his family. And he's taking that rage, that pain out on Faith. While this is a comic book character, this is all fantasy, in reality, this kind of thing is real for some people. Some people who face pain and tragedy in their life and are just so angry and so lost, they renounce their faith, you know? And I think that's what makes Gorr so cool, because it's not the galactic killer that is cool. I mean, how many galactic killers are there in comics? We've seen them all. What makes him cool is the damaged, broken person behind the shadows, behind the sword, behind the evil. Gorr also had a much more redeeming character arc in this movie than he had in the comics. I know a lot of fans weren't happy with his look on screen because it wasn't true to the comics, and I'll admit, it would have been cool to see this look in live action. However, I thought the MCU's version was still cool. He looks like a demon. You can't look at him and think, oh, he's mid. No. He was awesome. Bale owned his scenes, 100%. But having said that, this movie was so silly when he wasn't on screen, it kind of drowns out his performance. Honestly, I was rooting for Bale in this movie. I was rooting for the villain, hoping that he would do something so terrible and heart-wrenching just so people would stop laughing. It's like, yeah, this ain't funny now. It's getting serious now. And don't get me wrong, I get the overall message. There's some people I already know they're gonna be like, he obviously didn't get the film. I get it. I get the overall message. But what I'm saying is, the overall message was drowned out by how silly this movie was. In a nutshell, Thor Love and Thunder was a fast-paced joke. And honestly, it's pretty sad that I feel this way about the movie, because this movie had so much going for it. It had a fantastic cast. I mean, you got Thor, you got the Guardians of the Galaxy, you got Valkyrie, you got Jane Foster, even other characters. I like seeing Darcy back and Eric Selvig back. You know, you got Christian Bale as the God Butcher, you got Stormbreaker. It's like, this could have been one of the most epic Marvel movies we ever got. And on paper, it actually is a pretty good story. The execution on screen, I feel like they really dropped the ball. Now, the third act of the movie was great. Gotta be honest. I did love the third act. The final act, the showdown between Thor, Jane, and Gorr, Gorr reaching eternity. I thought all of that was great. And having Jane die, I thought that was bold. This movie did take some bold risks that I think paid off. Giving Jane cancer is something I didn't expect. Something I wouldn't even have thought of. I thought that was great. The emotional moment with Gorr begging Thor to take care of his daughter, reconsidering his motives. Maybe he's thinking, maybe I had this all wrong. Jane dying, all of that hit. That's really the only emotional moment in this movie that actually made an impact. But I didn't care for the end. Thor becoming a dad, adopting Gorr's daughter, didn't care for it, you know? And then the Guardians weren't even in it that much. The Guardians were only in it like in the first 6 minutes of the movie. I understand this is a Thor story, but I mean, Doctor Strange had more screen time in the last Spider-Man film than the Guardians had in this Thor movie. At the very least, the Guardians should have came at the end when it looked like all hope was lost. Gorr was about to win. The Guardians should have busted in, you know, and then you could have an epic showdown fight between Gorr and Thor, the forces of darkness with the Guardians, and you have that humor from the Guardians. None of that happened. None of that happened. They were in it for the first 6 minutes of the movie, then they were gone, with little to no explanation about why they never came back. Guys, I would give this movie, I'm struggling to give it a solid 5 out of 10. I really want to give it a 4.5 out of 10, but I'll give it a 5, saying it's halfway decent, and most of that is because I was really loving Christian Bale's performance. I think this movie should have been longer, more serious, darker. I mean, this is Gorr the God Butcher. If you read those Thor comics where he was in it, this ain't nothing that is taken lightly. Everyone has this misconception that DC movies have to be dark, serious, and scary, and Marvel movies have to be campy, colorful, and silly, otherwise they're not good. And that just isn't true. It's not true. There are plenty of dark and serious, real, emotional, and great stories in Marvel Comics, and I think Marvel Studios need to reconnect with those stories. But that's enough of me ranting and raving. Guys, this was my take on Thor Love and Thunder. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you have a different opinion, or if you really like this movie, if you thought I was just way off on my thinking, please let me know down below in the comment section what you thought, or even if you agree with me, let me know anything you think. If you're new here, be sure to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
I'm calling it now. I'm calling it now. I'm calling it now.